my name's Samuel Leeds, and in this interview I'm going to be discussing with a guy called Ben how he managed in just about 2 years to become a property millionaire. His monthly cash flow is around about £10,000 per month, and all of his properties, he's bought them, he's pushed the value up, and then he's refinanced and recycled his cash on each one of these properties. It's going to be an incredible story, so stay tuned. Also, if you enjoy the content, you enjoy the channel, do me a massive favor, smash the like button for more videos, which will help the YouTube algorithms. But right now, Ben, thank you so much for coming to my house.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So how did you get started in property?
So around about 2019, I'd had some time out of work and I had some time to think, and I actually read the Rich Dad Poor Dad book, similar to you, I believe. And there's somewhere in that book that talks about doing a couple of courses every year, just to get ideas and that type of thing. And I went onto Google, I typed in property course London, and like your name was top of the list. And then there was like this free crash course. I didn't really know much about it, but I just went in and signed up for the course in November 2019, and then I came along. From there, I did some other courses with yourself, and then early 2020 started finding a patch and a location that I wanted to invest in, which turned out to be Liverpool. And a bit later, probably around March time, driving up and down to Liverpool trying to find deals, meet agents and make
So when you came to the programme in 2019, it was a particular special day. Just tell us about that, because I think the commitment is a really important part to being a successful property investor. So tell me about your commitment on that day, because those 2 days.
Yeah, so when I went online, when I sort of found you on Google, I just booked the first one, and I didn't realise that overlapped with the Rugby World Cup final, and I'm a big rugby fan, so it was obviously the final. So I didn't know that England would be in the final, but as it turned out, they were in the final. And I think the course that you did was on the Friday and the Saturday, and I think you'd sort of let everyone know that, you know, to get anywhere you've got to be committed and things like that. And then on the Saturday I was like, fuck. I really wanted to watch the game, but I cancelled the plans to watch the game and came to the course on the second day on the Saturday.
Incredible commitment. But the thing is though, because I think I remember saying actually, nothing wrong with watching rugby and stuff, but you've got to be rooting for yourself to win more than you are rooting for rugby or England team or whatever to win. Like you've got, if people had the same passion for their businesses as they do for football, they'd be property millionaires, and that's exactly what you've become over the last couple of years. So good decision, and I hope you watched the catch-up version.
I did, and yeah, it was a shocking game for England. Anyway, we lost, but.
So whereabouts do you live?
Southwest London. Near.
So you're living in Southwest London. What was it that made you decide to have Liverpool as your patch?
A few things really. I mean, you just look at the yield up there. So one of our houses, which we'll come on to, is worth say £90,000, and it takes 600 quid in rent. Well, if you say times those numbers by 10, so a house in London, you'd see near me, there's loads of houses near me for 900,000. They'd never get £6,000 in rent. Right. So you go up north and you can find the yield. There's loads of towns where there are that yield. So again, you know, why Liverpool? I just think Liverpool's got something about it. It's got a university, it's got a football team. It felt like there was a lot of development just because we were going up there and visiting it. It felt like there was development going on up there anyway. There was a lot of positive things to attract you up there. Yeah. You know, it's a big town in the north, and the yields there. So I think it felt like I don't want to say a better town up north. I don't know many towns up north, but it just felt like it had a real something about it.
Yeah, it's kind of like pop in, there's stuff happening, it's busy. Yeah. Also as well, you came to the crash course, you joined the Property Investors Academy, you've done a lot of our courses on the development, BRRR. Yeah. What was it that made you make the decision to invest in yourself? Because that's quite a big thing really, you know. So what was it that made you decide to, before you invest in property, spend thousands of pounds investing in your own education and mentorship?
Almost like the realisation that so I'd worked for probably 10 to 15 years in a contracting business that I was kind of reliant on, and there was a spell in sort of 2016. There was a couple of spells between 2016 and 2019 where that world didn't stop working for me, and it had been sort of 100% up to about 2016, And then there were probably 2 6-month periods where I was out of work as a result of a downturn in the market. And I just sort of realised that I've been totally over-reliant on a job almost. And just saw, I saw your story as well and looked a bit about you, and just like you've got this passive income coming through, and I just thought, well, if I don't try it, I'll never know.
Yeah.
And at that point in 2019, I was back on my feet working, and so the money wasn't so much of an issue to pay for the courses and stuff. So well, what have I got to lose? It was like 1 or 2 months income from what I was doing at the time, the cost of the academy. So I thought, okay, so imagine I'd spent another 2 months out of work. Well, it's the equivalent of that. But now I've got this course that I can attend, I can meet these new people, I can find out what they're doing, get some ideas. Yeah. It felt like a no-brainer to me just to try it.
Great, that makes sense. And I think everyone's different, and everyone's got a different, everyone's in a different financial situation. You were in a situation whereby you did have a bit of money behind you. Yeah. You had a bit of money to put into property. You had a bit of money to put into your education. And I remember, on our training, we teach very much around if you've got a pot of money, if you've got 100 grand, I remember saying this to you actually, I think we were at this house on the Discovery Day. I'm like, look, if you've got 100 grand, if you sink that into a couple of buy-to-lets, congratulations, you're going to make 500 quid a month. Like, the money can very quickly disappear in property, and you really need to recycle your money. And that's what you did, and it wasn't all fun and games. There were some challenges, or there was some scary moments, and we're going to hopefully get the good, the bad, and the ugly from this interview, and really teach people what to do, but also what not to do. But talk to me through them. So you decide Liverpool, you decide it's your patch, the yields are good, it seems to be up and coming. So talk to me about your first property purchase in Liverpool.
Yeah, so we'd been knocking on the doors of all different agents, trying to find people, trying to explain to them what we were looking for, and then we found one agent that was actually helping a lady buy a whole portfolio from a receiver. So as we were told, there were say 50 or 60 properties that were being sold to this lady, and her strategy was to sell some of them to fund the refurbs that she wanted to do on the other. So if say there was 50 that she was being sold, she wanted to sell 10, but just really in the right place at the right time. So all the valuations on these properties were already quite distressed, because they were in the receivership, and I'm not entirely sure why they got into such a state, but they were really dilapidated properties as well. So she needed a quick sale because she'd bought the whole portfolio, I think, using some form of finance, so it was quite expensive to her. So she was really motivated to sell, we were motivated to buy, and it happened to be the right place, the right time.
Right, so she probably skipped the class. You're right. And then, but she's got these properties, so she's motivated to sell. Where did you connect with her from? Did you find her through an agent, or how did you find her?
Well, so the agent was like the middleman.
Right. Okay. So you went to an agent. How do you approach agents? So you want to buy properties, you want to do BRRs. You said you went to lots of agents. What do you say? How do you find these deals?
Just sort of kind of being herself, really. Just walking through the door, having a chat. It's nothing sort of that technical about it. Just walking through the door, looking for a property that might have some value added if we do some work on it, that type of thing. Right. Looking for something. Have you got something that nobody wants to buy? Right. And then those types of things. And then they sort of different agents. I think it's probably good to try and find some of the smaller independent agents. Yeah. Because I think a lot of the high street ones are a bit too sort of mechanical, right. Whereas the independent agents, we found more willing to sort of try and think out the box.
And did you walk in, or did you call beforehand?
So we called beforehand, yeah. Made sure that there was somebody there that was able to speak to us.
So you just call up small independent agents. If you go to Google and you type estate agents in Liverpool, the first page on Google, you might want to go to like the 10th or something and get these smaller agencies where it's like, Roger and Co. and you're actually speaking to Roger.
Exactly.
You're speaking to the owner.
And it's his business, and he's got something invested in it as well.
And then you're just going to call up and say, I'm looking for properties I can add value to, I can fix up. Would it be possible to come in, share it is what I'm looking for, go in, speak to different agents, bang, 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 and then you ended up with this distressed lady. So how many properties did you buy from her?
So we bought, 3 initially.
Yeah.
So there were 3 that we bought from her, just under 40,000 each.
Nice. Why under 40,000?
Then there's no stamp duty. So originally the asking price was 40,000, and I said, well, can we call it 3950? Yeah. and then we saved. It would have been like 1,200 quid each on the stamp duty. So by knocking 50 quid off, we saved ourselves 3,600 quid.
That people would pay 40 grand for a house and pay, because if you paid a pound less, you'd save like 1,200 quid. Yeah. So okay, so you buy these 3 little houses in Liverpool, and presumably you bought them with just your savings from your job.
Exactly. So at that point, then I'd been talking to a friend of mine, Mike. I think you've met, and we agreed that we'd sort of pool our money and go in together. Main reason for doing that was that there's someone sort of like to share the load in terms of, because there's a lot involved in doing the refurbs and the once you bought them, buying them is almost like the easy bit, and then but also you're able to. We were pretty much buying everything ourselves without any external help. So the idea being that, you know, if I could buy one house by myself, if that goes vacant, then I've got 100% vacancy. Whereas if we buy 2 together and there's one vacant, there's only 50% vacancy. So it's just spreading the risk as well.
So you pulled your money together then, with Mike, who obviously we also know well. Bought these 3 houses, 40 grand. End figures, and we're going to go through the story of some of the complications, but just end figures. So you bought them for 40 approximately. How much did you spend on the refurbs?
On average, about 30.
So all in all, you're talking about 70 grand.
Yeah.
And then what did the final end value come down to?
The average is about, so there were 3, it was 85, 90 and 92. So just under 90 on average.
So then you refinanced, pulled your initial money out?
Yeah.
Nearly all of it?
Yeah, so after fees and stuff, you know, it's north of 95% probably.
Okay, so you left about 5% in the deals. Yeah. And you've gone on to do that now on a 4th, a 5th, a 6th, a 7th, an 8th. So now you've got this whole portfolio. What's the total value of the portfolio you have?
Probably about 1.3 million.
1.3 million, with a monthly or annual profit?
Yeah, so number 8 isn't tenanted yet. The refurb's still ongoing, but once that is complete, the gross rent annually will be about 110,000 a year.
What about your profit? Do you know?
It's roughly 50%.
Okay, so about 55 grand profit a year coming in from your portfolio, which you've just been recycling to build. Quite an impressive story. So I want to go through some of the challenges that you've had, because I know there have been challenges, and also just really delving into the lessons, because a lot of people right now are wanting to do buy, refurbish, refinance. They might be like you, where they've got 50 grand, 100 grand, whatever, and they're looking to invest it, but instead of just buying one property, they want to recycle it and build a whole portfolio like you've done. So what were some of the biggest challenges that you've had, and how did you overcome them?
I guess pulling the trigger initially was quite hard, because even though we had the money, the means, you know, some education about it, just the comparables at the time weren't perfect. So we were seeing so where we wanted the 90 grand valuation, a lot of them at the time were probably closer to 80, and there was like 1 or 2 90s, and you're like, well, am I going to get the highest in the area? And so there was an element of, it's not the perfect BRRR, but should I do it anyway? And again, we just thought, well, look, we've got to try it. And so pulling the trigger, I think, initially, because we had as while the lady we were buying from was distressed, she needs us to move quickly. So we've got to move quickly as well. So we've got to go and get builders quotes and things like that. And so that was one of the biggest things, was just learning to move quickly, make a decision. You've got to be decisive, because otherwise you're going to miss it.
Are you quite a detailed guy?
So I'm an engineer by background, so I am, but I also sort of like aware of the situation as well, you know. So when a decision needs to be made, and you've only got X amount on the table to make a decision with, you know, I'm happy to make a decision.
Do you think that it's important that when people, especially like yourself, engineer type backgrounds, those analytical thinkers, which I know you are, you might not know how much you are, but you are, but do you think it's important that people realise that in property, you need to be able to make decisions quickly?
Yeah, absolutely, because if we'd have hung around, like those were good deals.
What about that deal we lost?
Yeah.
But that wasn't you hanging around, was it? Maybe a tiny bit?
No, I don't think so. I think we agreed, like, that you wanted me to have like a decision by a certain point in the week, and I think we just about made it, but the agent had allowed someone else to gazump it.
Yeah, I think you're about an hour late. we can argue the toss. Yeah. It was a while ago now. But yeah, I think it's a really interesting point though what you say, because in property, when a good deal comes along, you've got to be able to be educated enough to do your due diligence quickly, because it won't stick around, will it? Like it will go.
Yeah, I mean the difference with that deal is that we needed to seek. That was a bigger deal for us, and we needed to seek commitment from other people.
Yeah.
So while we got like enough yeses on the table, you know, there's like a yes, but you're sort of looking at them as like, is that really a yes? Are you really committed? And so I didn't want to sort of pass on a yes to you when I thought like I've got a couple of iffy yeses on my side.
Yeah, well, that's another thing. Let's talk about that. So when you're saying yes to a deal, what are the risk assessment things? Because I always say you need to look at the best case, likely case, and worst case. And if you're forced to have to make a quick decision, like for instance, if you're buying a property deal that comes along, or if you're buying from auction, or if you're bidding, you need to be aware of what the worst case scenarios are. So for example, the deal that we missed on, it was probably right that you didn't give a hard yes sooner, because if you had of, and then bang, we got it wrapped up, and then you were committed to having to put down X hundreds of thousands of pounds, but then your guys didn't put the money in, you're kind of scuppered, and you've hurt your reputation, and so sometimes saying yes and being quick isn't the right thing to do. If the worst case is, you're going to be scuppered financially. So what I do if I'm doing a deal is I think, well, look, I know I need to make a quick decision. Worst case, can I live with worst case? If I can live with worst case, and if best case is looking good, then I'll normally just go ahead and go with my gut. But I don't know what your take, after buying 8 properties, BRRs, being around the whole training, doing lots of deals, what do you have to say about that?
Well, I guess it in terms of the worst case, so for the worst case on those ones that we bought, I guess they would have, the worst case for the stuff that just Mike and I did ourselves, it would have almost been the equivalent of, say, just buying something. So say we weren't able to, like that one that we bought, one of the first ones we bought for 40,000, spent 30 on it. If we'd only got a valuation of 70, which is what we'd spent, it would have been no different to us just going out and buying a buy-to-let.
Yeah.
So, okay, it's not the end of the world. You know, you'll eventually get your money back. It will still cash flow a little bit, and then you can hope to get some capital appreciation over time. So it wasn't that big a decision to make. But
love that. So basically, worst case, you've just bought a house that you're renting out on a high yield. Best case, you pull out all your money. The problem comes is when people borrow money from their auntie and say, I promise I'll pay you back in 6 months with interest because I'm going to put all my money out. And it's like, well, hang on a minute. What happens if you don't? But because you were using your money, there wasn't that same level of risk there.
No, exactly. And what's your money doing sat there anyway? It's not doing much else.
Yeah.
So, but in the case of the deal that we talked about, you know, the worst case was probably like losing a load of money in fees that was non-recoverable. So, you know, in the tens of thousands of pounds we'd have lost if those iffy yeses turned out to be no's.
Which you didn't want to do that.
Yeah, well, because I can't remember exactly the numbers, but it would have been like 30 to 40 grand in the hole.
Yeah.
If the deal went down, and that would have depleted our capital quite significantly.
Yeah, exactly. I think that you made the right call, and I think I said that to you at the time. You know, I don't think that you were bad over it or anything. I'm not bitter or holding on to any resentment, honest.
Yeah.
So, okay, problem. You did get downvalued on some of your properties.
Yeah, so those first 3 that we did, we actually managed, you know, they almost went textbook. Like the builder quote came in pretty much on the money. There was a couple of little variations, but nothing major.
Yeah.
And he started when he said he was going to start, and he finished when he said he was going to finish. It was ideal, really.
Right.
So we bought those early September 2020, and they were tenanted. 2 of the 3 were tenanted early December.
Okay.
So we went to refinance, and we were thinking, you know, we might go for the 90 sort of thing. We pushed it a little bit. I think we asked for like 95 or something, just to. They always want to give you a little bit less than you asked for, I felt like. But they came back. So you're only open to a certain number of lenders when you've only owned the property for 6 months. So we went to those lenders. There was only 2 or 3, I think, available to us at the time, and they came back and said the houses were basically worth what we paid for them, plus the refurb money. So we got valuations back of like 70,000, and I was like, this can't be right. And
I remember this very well, because this is when you were on the phone to me quite a bit.
Yeah. We'd spoken, and you're like, you know, you kind of, I think you sort of said my expectations were a bit too high almost, but that kind of thing.
Where your expectations were too high though, was not on the value, which I felt at the time, was on the time scale, because you were saying to me, I can't wait 6 months to pull my money out. I want to get the money out now, which of course, as you mentioned, limits you massively on the lenders that you can use. Yeah. So the lenders that you were limited to use weren't particularly great lenders, extremely conservative, high interest rates, downvalued the property. Problem, obviously you were really disappointed. How did you get through that?
Well, we already had, we'd bought our fourth one by that point, and we had the money to do the fourth one. So we weren't sort of overly concerned in the sense that we were still progressing.
Yeah.
So we just thought we'd wait. We'd wait until we'd owned them for 6 months. And then the reality of it was, by the time we were getting those valuations, I think it was late December, early January. And so we'd already had the property about 4 months. Right. So waiting was only another couple of months. Yeah. And until we got over the 6 month hurdle.
And then you got another lender.
And then we got another lender.
Value it up.
And then it was valued at 90,000. Yeah.
Bang. So what's the lesson?
Well, the lesson there, I don't think there is a lesson as such. I think that, you know, ideally, that lender in the first 6 months would have given us what we were doing. So I don't think we did anything wrong. You know, if we'd have refinanced after 3 months, it would, you know, we'd have felt like heroes, right? So
yeah. No, I think there is a lesson. I think the lesson is that sometimes things take a while.
Yeah.
Because they do. Because you at the time are wanting everything to be lightning speed, but sometimes things can take a little time. BRR is notoriously slow. Yeah. It's not fast. It takes time. You've been in the business now for a couple of years, coming up to 2 years to get to the point where you're at. I remember speaking to you about a year ago, and I was like, wow, you've got 8 houses. Come on, Windows on a Wednesday. And you were like, well, I've got 8 houses, but we haven't refinanced them yet. A lot of them aren't tenanted. I just need to, do you know what I mean? Whereas if you were doing something like deal sourcing or rent to rents, it's very quick, but you've chosen a more passive but slower route, which is fine.
Yeah, I guess I saw rent to rents and deal sourcing as a job. Yeah,
it's true. To a point, it's active.
Yeah. And
you're already making good money in an active job.
Yeah. So I think we definitely want to think about getting into deal sourcing because, you know, obviously you're assessing deals anyway. So something that might not necessarily be appropriate for you could well be appropriate for somebody else.
True.
But actually sort of saying I'm going to quit my job and then make that my job, we're not ready for that yet.
And if you enjoy what you're doing and you're making good money, then it might be more appropriate to do a slower pound strategy like buy, refurbish, refinance. But also as well with buy, refurbish, refinance, if you do a BRR in Liverpool and it's just a normal regular BRR, even if you pull all your money out, generally speaking, you're probably only going to make a few £100 profit, which is peanuts, because the average rent for these sorts of 90 grand houses is like £500-600. Yeah. Then you've paid your mortgage payments, your maintenance, your management. It's not really very profitable. So whilst yes, you're building your wealth because you're effectively forcing the equity up and you're trapping your deposit in the property, so you're increasing your net worth. In terms of cash flow, it's not very good. So how do you feel about that?
No, I agree with you. So, like, just take one of those. So, one of those 90 grand properties. You know, we're probably making sort of somewhere between 250 quid, 300 quid a month on that. Yeah. And it feels like a lot of money for 300 quid a month. A lot of time and effort for 300 quid a month. So I do agree with that. But it's nice that it's just sort of sat there now. So that should be now 300 quid a month. You know, forever, say, right?
Yeah, and the house is going up in value.
I guess you need a mix, right? You need a mix of things you're doing. So we focused on BRRs for now, and like you say, maybe we need to think about some other strategies that are...
I mean, to be fair on you though, I mean, you've got £110,000, annual rent roll, but I bet the majority of that is from your few HMOs.
Yeah, it is, yeah. But
brilliant.
This is the other thing as well though. So like, again, talking about lenders and what, you know, there's talk about, you know, you can get your first one as an HMO. But again, you're going to be limited to a certain number of lenders that will do that. So we wanted to make sure that we had a couple of single lets first. Yeah. For two reasons, really. One is that it makes your life easier for the HMOs because you'll open up a wider group of lenders. Yeah. But BRRs tend to be more efficient if they're a single let because there's less to be done to them. So if you take the amount of money that we've got a 4-bed HMO that we've refurbed, the amount of money that it takes to convert that is quite high relative to doing, so where we'd spend 40,000 converting Sorry, we spent 30,000 to refurb a sort of 2 up, 2 down. You know, that you could do double that.
Yeah. Fire doors, ensuite, smoke alarms, furniture.
So you could spend 60 to 70,000 to convert that into that same type of house. Not exactly the same sort of house, but not too far off. And then you won't pull all your money out.
Right.
So
are you valuing on commercial or on a bricks and mortar?
So on that 4-bed, we got a commercial valuation, yeah.
Okay.
4-bed HMO got about 85% on the HMOs. So whereas the single lets are probably closer to north of 95%, the HMOs are more like 85%.
Sure. So you pull up majority, but you have to leave in a bit of money. Yeah. But then the flip side is you're making vast more cash flow. Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of swings and roundabouts. And this is why it's important. I see being a property investor is like having a toolbox, you know, deal sourcing, BRRR, HMOs, and you can just think, right, let me just do what's appropriate for the situation. With your HMOs as well, you were smart because you bought prior to Article 4 coming in, which I imagine, well, I know it was, that was part of the strategy.
Yeah, so one of the properties that we bought wasn't a BRR, it was an operating HMO. There is potential to do it up and probably increase the rent, so there's a BRR from that perspective. Sort of for the future, but it's already an operating HMO, and we knew Article 4 was coming in, so we wanted to buy in that area because once Article 4 comes in, you know, that potentially limits other people coming into the market.
And it just makes your house like a special edition house, so to speak, and you know, you get the grandfather rights. Has that happened now? Then has it?
So we've once you buy the house and there's already an existing license. The license gets revoked because the license is in the name of the previous owner. So then we've applied for our own license. Right. That application's going through.
What's your thoughts? Because I remember about 2 years ago, maybe less, 18 months ago, in 2020, when you were just going on this buying spree in Liverpool, and the media, there was news articles by leading estate agents that were saying Liverpool market's about to crash. And I know you were a little bit nervous. I think to be honest, a lot of people were quite nervous. That's certainly not what I was saying. You know what I was saying? I was saying no, they're going to rise, and I was correct. But again, nerve-wracking time. Media, when we first went into lockdown, the media was saying, well, the prices did drop slightly, and they let us know house prices are crashing. House prices are crashing. Then they boomed, and then the media was saying they're about to crash. They're about to crash. Like James Caan says, observe the masses and do the opposite. And you know, how did you manage to navigate through that when you've got so much noise going on in the media and Dave down the pub and everyone's saying it's a terrible time to do this, don't do it. You made the decision to continue. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so I think the reason there was that dip because we were kind of right in the middle of COVID or the early days of COVID anyway. So 2020 was the first round about September time was like within the first 6 months of COVID. So I think where like loads of restaurants and bars and students had all probably left their accommodation and gone home, they left a void. So a lot of landlords with buy-to-let properties had a load of vacancy because everyone went home because if they were a student, the universities were closed, or if they worked in a bar or a restaurant, all that type of stuff was closed. So, but I don't know, I just kind of thought, well, you know, it's going to be a short-lived thing, and you know, eventually there'll be a solution, and I didn't pay too much attention to it. Also because speaking to the agents, there was still quite high demand for rentals. Yeah. So while the price was going down, I was only really interested in the end value, and I knew that we weren't that far off it. So, right. Do you know what I mean? It was going back to the worst case scenario again. I knew I'd get the 70,000 on the revaluation, but I wanted 90. So if there's high demand for families, which is what the single lets were targeting, we weren't really going for the student market or that end of the market that was seeing all the vacancies. We were sort of targeting a different part of the market, and so it didn't feel like it applied to us.
So since that was all said then, October 2020, that was when there was the Liverpool is about to crash headlines going around. Yeah. What has happened in Liverpool since October 2020?
I think it's topping the charts. It's at least in the top 5 or 10 in the last 2 years in terms of capital appreciation and house price increases.
So the houses then that you bought, since refinanced, do you think they've gone up even more?
I'd expect they have, yeah. We haven't refinanced them yet, but so I guess 2 years. I think those first ones we were fixed for 2 years. So September this year.
So you might end up refinancing them again and pulling out all your money and more. So where you thought it was 95, 97%, maybe it's 110%.
Yeah, and we've cash flowed since as well.
Yeah. Why, out of all the potential different property trainers and courses, why did you choose me to be your property trainer and mentor?
Yeah, so I obviously came along to the crash course. So when I was looking for like property courses in London, like you were top of the list. I think you were the first one on Google, and I didn't know you at the time from any different from any of the others. So I booked the crash course. It was obviously quite accessible as well, doing the crash course as well, and it felt like an easy way into trying it. But then, no, I thought the crash course. I thought it was quite a powerful course. You know, I thought it was quite. You know, I can't remember how big the room was. That was one and did in Earls Court.
Probably 1,000 people.
There was a lot of people there, and it just felt like, oh, it was quite powerful that you were able to kind of attract that amount of an audience. And then I thought there was a lot of value in the crash course. I really liked some of the stuff that was in there. I don't remember all of it quite now, but I just remember at the time thinking, you know, I really liked what I heard, so then, and that's why I signed up to the academy that weekend anyway.
Yeah. Was it a good decision?
Yeah, no, definitely. I feel like, you know, I've got loads of great ideas. I mean, the thing is with the courses and that, and the courses in reality, you've got to accept that there's the life lessons that you get for actually doing it. But I thought it was a good foundation of ideas in the courses and a great network. And I think, you know, I've obviously gone on to do other, on top of the academy, the development stuff with you as well, which I enjoy as well. So, yeah, no, it's been a really good decision. I really enjoyed it.
And I think as well, just being able to pick up the phone is important, because you don't, when you're doing a deal, sometimes if you've got no one to check your blind spots, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So like Anthony and Dave and Alistair and those guys, you know, they've all been really good.
What do you think about your plans for the future? Like, what's the, you've obviously got this nice £1.3 million property portfolio in Liverpool. What's next?
So we already had half an eye on that. So in the middle of COVID, I think you were doing these like discovery days, and I even paid on top of that to come and. I think that's the first time I came.
You brought Mike down.
That was another time, but I think the first time I came in by myself.
Right.
And then I think you were only a couple of weeks away from doing your development course.
Right.
And then I came in and I joined that. And so we had half an eye on development as well, being the future.
Nice.
So we haven't done anything yet. We've got another property that we've sort of lined up in London, which has got, you know, a lot of potential to flip. So we're gonna. It's not a development as such. It's still just a loft conversion and extension, which is similar to some of the stuff we've done in Liverpool, but it's just a bigger scale.
Right.
But it feels like a natural progression.
Start putting some zeros on the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just, like, the work involved isn't that much different. It's just because of the location involved, it makes it that much more lucrative.
Are you proud of what you've done?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like you know, it's taken a lot of effort on both mine and Mike's part, but you know, we've got there eventually. You know.
How do you juggle your time on top of a very demanding job, because you're still in your job, because you like it and you paid well, but how do you juggle being able to have a high-paid corporate job working in construction alongside running a property business?
It's lots of things, really. I mean, like, you know, I pick my moments when I'm going to go up to Liverpool. Obviously, I take time off when it suits work, that type of thing. You know, family life. You know, there's compromises there. Who's doing?
You just had a baby.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thanks, man. Yeah. So, you know, fortunately, my wife, you know, takes a lot of the pressure off there, like by looking after the kids when I need to go and do stuff. So, you know, my wife is very good that way. She, you know, she's making sure that the kids are happy and giving me, you know, she's helping me like not have to put time in with the kids so much, so that she does that so I can do this, because obviously ultimately it's for us at the end of the day. So it's just that having that balance, that compromise as a family.
Yeah.
And then you know, like having a partner, you know, bouncing things off. Like, so when I've got downtime in work and I can take time off, it's, you know, it's different for Mike. So that having a partnership, it definitely helps. Like, if I go on holiday, Mike looks after things, and vice versa. Yeah. So, you know, like having a wife that's supportive and a good business partner. two of the main factors. And then, sometimes you just have to put the hours in when it's necessary.
You can either find excuses or you can get rich.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, oh, now's not the time for me because I'm at uni. I'll wait until I finish. But it's like, well, hang on, then you're going to have a job.
Yeah.
And then, I've just settled into my job. Oh, I've just had a baby. Oh, I've just had a this. Now's not the right time. It's like, no, never's the perfect time. No one's ever just sat twiddling their thumbs doing nothing. That's never going to happen. If you want to get rich, you may as well just say, you know what? I'm going to go to the crash course. I'm going to miss the rugby.
Yeah.
I'm going to book I'm going to choose a patch. I'm going to get a mentor. I'm going to take some trips to Liverpool. And regardless of how busy I am, everybody is busy.
Exactly. There's never a good time. And now, you just got to get on with it. You've got to try it. You use some of your annual leave if you're in work, right? And just take some time off and go and explore.
Well, huge congrats on what you've done. It's been good working with you.
Yeah, likewise.
And I'm really glad to see what you've built together with Mike. And I'm excited about your future. So there you have it, folks. I hope you enjoyed the discussion with Ben. If you want to connect with Ben, I'm going to leave his LinkedIn details below in the description. Also, if you like Ben, if you want to come to the Property Investors Crash Course and you want to learn your property investment strategy, there are limited tickets available, but right now they are free. So I'm going to leave a link in the description as well, where you can get booked on to the Property Investors Crash Course. If you want to see more interviews like this as well, there's a whole playlist right here where you can check out a whole bunch of people's stories, how they become financially independent through property. Come to the Property Investors Crash Course. I'll leave a link right here. Subscribe, and we will see you next time.